What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Recher Reacts. I am your host, Jey Recher. A little bit after midnight here. It is now Tuesday morning, September 24th. I appreciate you if you're up with me. And if you are, you're going to get some entertaining stuff today. We're talking NFL number one overall draft picks. We're also talking about why Jey Uso was the perfect choice to win the Intercontinental title. It happened on Monday Night Raw. And then the one injury that has absolutely rocked the Premier League to its core. Follow me on all social media platforms. You see it right here, right here. There you go. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I am everywhere. So make sure you follow me on all those social media platforms. And if you're watching me on YouTube, like and subscribe. Every like and subscription certainly does help. So I appreciate your support already. So there you go. Just sharing on all my social media platforms. I always want you guys to get involved in the conversation. So feel free to comment wherever you're watching from, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook. Yeah, and let's chat here late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. Plenty to get into, including the double dip of the Monday night football games between the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals and the Washington Commanders. Yeah, so let's get to this real quick. No Jay and Zach tomorrow on the program, on WDAE, because the Tampa Bay Rays and the Detroit Tigers have moved their game up. So it was originally going to be a start around 7 o'clock, but because of inclement weather in the forecast, they've moved the game up to 1:10. So no Jay and Zach tomorrow on WDAE. So we'll be off technically, but we'll see. We got some stuff going on. Going to work on the room here as well and spice things up a little bit. So if you tune into WDAE at noon tomorrow and you hear the inside pitch of Ronnie Lane, now you know why. All right, let's get right into it. What has happened to these number one overall picks? And what I want to do is I want to look back at all of the number one overall draft picks that are quarterbacks in the last 10 years, starting 2015 with Jameis Winston and then all the way up until this year, 2024, Caleb Williams. What has happened to these guys? And it's kind of funny how everything breaks down when you look at everybody and you can kind of group them together. And it's just wild that just because you're drafted number one overall, it really doesn't guarantee you anything. And out of all of these guys, only two of them have been to a Super Bowl. None of them has actually won a Super Bowl. It's just wild to think about it. So, what has happened to these guys? And we'll start with the two guys that I think are in the best position right now, and that is Jared Goff, who was the number one overall pick in 2016 by the Rams, and then Baker Mayfield, who was the number one overall pick in 2018 by the Cleveland Browns. We know that Jared Goff is now a member of the Detroit Lions, traded for another number one overall pick, Matthew Stafford, and Baker Mayfield, now the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Goff didn't have a great week 2, Baker didn't have a great week 3, but I think you could I think we can all agree that they're in good spots. They're in good situations. And it's really cool to see those guys really, get another crack at it and go to a different place and be welcomed with open arms and have some success. Those two guys met in the playoffs last year. Jared Goff and the Lions won. They went to the NFC Championship game. The Buccaneers tied for first place in the NFC South. Those guys are in really good positions. I don't think there's any question about that. Two other guys, unfortunately, aren't starting right now, and that's the number one overall pick from 2015, Jameis Winston, who is now with the Cleveland Browns, and the 2023 number one overall pick, Bryce Young, who is still with the team that drafted him, the Carolina Panthers. And we know about Jameis Winston and everything that's happened in his career, drafted number one overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and going to the New Orleans Saints, and now a backup to Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. And after watching Watson, easy for me to say, after watching Deshaun Watson up there in Cleveland, I only think it's probably a matter of time before Jameis gets a crack under center. Uh, as far as Bryce Young goes, after just 2 weeks of the 2024 season, he's out. Andy Dalton is in, and Dalton comes in and leads the Carolina Panthers to their first win of the season. What does the future hold for those guys? I think there's probably more questions than answers. I'm not going to include a guy like Caleb Williams. There's still the jury's still out, obviously, but I think it's very ironic that just after a few games with the Chicago Bears, there's people wondering if they should have held on to another one of their first round picks, not number one overall, but another one of their first round picks, Justin Fields, who has quarterbacked the Pittsburgh Steelers to a 3-0 record. Caleb Williams has had some good moments. He's had some bad moments. I mean, it's just natural for a rookie quarterback. But at least, he's locked into that spot and he doesn't have to look over his shoulder like Bryce Young was this year. And then you look at the three remaining guys. Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence, all drafted number one overall. 2019 for Murray, 2020 Joe Burrow, 2021 Trevor Lawrence. And when you look at Kyler Murray, it's been an up and down ride for that kid in Arizona. I mean, they had to put something in his contract so that he would study more. That is never a good thing. And even though they had a phenomenal week 2 where they destroyed the Los Angeles Rams, and Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison had just a exquisite chemistry, I still think people are wondering if he's ever going to reach those lofty heights of his, that you would think you would reach with a number one overall pick as your quarterback. Jury's still out on Kyler Murray. It really is, at least for me. And then the last two guys, Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. And it's kind of wild that they were both on Monday Night Football tonight. And now, after those games have completed, they are both quarterbacking 0-3 teams. We'll start with Trevor Lawrence. What has happened to that kid? He had everything in front of him. They win a playoff game. He's got Doug Peterson, who's a quarterback whisperer, led the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl over Tom Brady and the Patriots. But Trevor Lawrence has regressed big time. 21 of 38 tonight, 178 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, sacked 4 times. He does not look comfortable in the pocket. He does not look comfortable running the football. What happened to this kid? He has been awful, and it just keeps getting worse. You saw Mac Jones tonight. That's how bad it got for the Jags. When it comes to Joe Burrow, hell of an effort against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. And listen, I thought he played decent ball tonight. 29 to 38, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think Joe played pretty damn well. But you have to start wondering what's going on with Joe Burrow and the Bengals. He's a hell of a player, but he's had some injury concerns. And you wonder, when they went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, was that as close as they were going to get? We've seen that with other quarterbacks as well. So it's kind of interesting to look at all of these guys that were drafted number one overall. And when you see them, only 2 of them, Goff and Burrow, have ever been to a Super Bowl. Neither of them won. Goff losing as a member of the Los Angeles Rams. Goff losing as a member of the Rams. Joe Burrow losing, or yeah, Goff losing as a member of the Rams to the New England Patriots. Burrow losing as a member of the Cincinnati Bengals to the Rams, ironically enough, and Matthew Stafford. But just because you get that quarterback at number one doesn't necessarily mean he's going to lead you to a Super Bowl. The last number one overall pick to lead his team to the Super Bowl, I mean, I guess it has to be Matthew Stafford, but it wasn't the guy. It wasn't him. They didn't draft him. Wasn't Cam Newton, wasn't Sam Bradford, wasn't Matthew Stafford, wasn't Alex Smith. The last quarterback drafted number one overall to win a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him, Eli Manning in 2004. And then you go farther back and you see Peyton Manning in 98. Drew Bledsoe, I guess, but we're not going to count him. Can we count him? That's pretty wild to think that you have to go back to 2004. So in the last 20 years, only one quarterback that was drafted number one overall led the team that drafted him to a Super Bowl, and that was Eli Manning. Pretty wild. No guarantees in the National Football League. Everything changes from week to week. Isn't it nuts? Last week, you swear things are going to happen. This team sucks. Write them off. They're no good. or this team is one of the best teams in the conference. And then the next week they lay an egg. That's the beauty. That is the beauty of sports, and that is the beauty of the NFL, even if there's been some ugly football so far. All right, make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Jey Recher, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I am everywhere. Hopefully, you can meet me there too. Want to talk a little Monday Night Raw here. Some things that I really liked. I love the back and forth with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, the new day, the new way. He's going to wrestle Rey Mysterio next week. I like this. I like this kind of new side of Xavier Woods. You need a fresh coat of paint on some of these wrestlers because it gets stale. It gets stale. You need something new. Hell, if the Undertaker, who had the best gimmick of all time, realized that he had to change it up a couple of times in his career, I think every wrestler should look in the mirror and say, hey, every once in a while we should, especially if you're established, like the guys in the New Day, future Hall of Famers, change it up a little bit. Doesn't mean you got to change everything, but just tweak it. Tweak it. The other thing I really liked is the last monster standing match between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed that's coming up. Those guys just brawling everywhere. I think that they've written this absolutely perfectly. You don't need to see a bell to bell, masterclass of a bunch of chain wrestling. Just you need a bunch of carnage, and that's exactly what we've gotten. I loved it. Well done, WWE. Um, all right. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the WWE and the Monday Night Raw is putting the belt on Jey Uso was absolutely the right choice. 100%. And I know there's going to be some people out there that are going to say, "Oh my gosh, oh my god, Braun Breaker, he wasn't even the champion for that long. You're killing that kid's push." No, you're not. No, you're not. That guy is still over like Rover. He's a freaking badass, and that loss is not going to do anything to stunt his growth in the WWE. That guy's a future world champion. Jey Uso winning this match meant the world. First singles title for that guy. Think about how much he's grown since he was introduced to the WWE back in NXT, and then coming up through the ranks, winning all of those tag team titles with his brother Jimmy, entering into the greatest storyline we've seen in the last 20 years with the Bloodline, main event Jey Uso, the right hand man to the tribal chief Roman Reigns, and how he's grown and he's gone off. He's spread his wings away from the family business, away from everybody. He goes to Monday Night Raw. He has the best entrance in wrestling right now. Everybody pops for this. He knows exactly what to do to be successful in the ring. He's athletic as hell. He's great at selling. He's great at communicating with people in the ring, out of the ring. The mic work, I was watching some of the stuff that he was doing with Sami Zayn during all the Bloodline stuff. To see that guy grow is unbelievable. This was the absolute right move. Sometimes sometimes in the WWE or sometimes in pro wrestling in general, I feel like they overthink it. They overthink it. Maybe we should wait. And you got to strike while the iron's hot. Everybody wanted to see him win tonight. That false finish that they had late in the match after he hit the Uso splash was so close. That was 2.99. And you tip your hat to Braun Breaker. That was fantastic. He put on one hell of a show. But when Jey Uso finally got the 1, 2, 3, that building in Ontario, California became unglued. Incredible. And here's the other reason why it's a smart thing. If you are going to go new bloodline against old bloodline at Survivor Series, you need Jey Uso to have some prominence. You need him to have some success. He needs to have a little bit of that. Hey, I'm balling right now. We don't need him to be, we don't need Jey Uso as the puppy that lost its way. And he kind of, comes back to Roman Reigns. Nothing's working for me. That's not good. You don't want that. You want him at the top of his game. Roman looks at him and he goes, that's one of my lieutenants right there. He became main event Jey Uso under my watch. And now look at him. He's flourishing. Then when you bring him back into the mix, maybe he has the belt on him. Maybe he loses it, whatever. But he's still strong. I think he holds on to it. But they need him in that storyline. I just, you got to strike while the iron's hot. I saw something today that really pissed me off, and I was like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't happen. Where instead of it being Roman and Jimmy and Jay and Sammy, it was Roman and Cody and KO and DIY. If that's the story against the new bloodline, that's it's not going to have the desired effect. It's just not. I don't want to see Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in this bloodline storyline with these guys. I don't. That's not the story everybody wants to see. They're going to crap all over it. Just like they did when you try to stuff Rock and Roman down our throats when everybody just wanted to see Cody Rhodes finish the story. It has to be Jimmy and Jay and Roman and Sami Zayn. And if you want to add Cody, okay, but it has to be those four guys in there against Solo, Tangaloa, Jacob Fatu. If you want to add somebody else, do that too. But there's so many reasons why this was the perfect situation for Jey Uso. And just a fan favorite, a legit babyface. A lot of fans that want the majority of the fans that went to that event tonight went home with huge smiles on their faces. Huge. They saw a good guy who's been busting his ass, who's really evolved into a main event player, reach that status to win that workhorse championship. That's a big deal, winning that Intercontinental Championship. Big deal. So congratulations to Jey Uso. And the only other thing I can add to that is yeet. All right, finally, the one injury that this injury has completely rocked the foundation of the Premier League. And we saw this today. Rodri, one of the best players in the world. For a lot of people's money, he could be the best player in the world right now. You're talking about a multiple-time Premier League winner, a Champions League winner, helped Spain win the Euros this year. A guy that when they announced the Ballon d'Or in a month for the best player in the world for the 2024 year, I'd be surprised if it wasn't him. And unfortunately for him and Man City and their fans all around the world, it looks like he's torn his ACL. And you know me, you see it right here. Manchester's always going to be red for me. But I have the utmost respect for Rodri, and I never want to see a guy go down like that. He is one of the best players that I've ever seen on the pitch. He is a guy that can literally do everything. His progressive passes, scoring big goals. I mean, he scored the game-winning goal in the Champions League final. Like that, you write your name in the history books there. Listen to some of these stats from Rodri. He is unbeaten in 52 straight league games in the Premier League. The best run anybody's had in any of Europe's top 5 leagues in the last 5 years. When Manchester City lost the FA Cup final to Manchester United, it marked the first time he'd lost a game with Man City in 75 matches. Are you freaking kidding me? Incredible. A pro's pro. He can do it all on the pitch. And it just seems like he's a guy that wherever he goes, he wins. Whatever he touches turns to gold. And to see him leave the pitch in that match on Sunday against Arsenal and to see the motions that he was making towards Pep Guardiola and the look on his face, you knew it wasn't good. You knew it wasn't an ankle sprain. You knew it wasn't just a, all right, he picked up it wasn't a contusion. He knew that it was bad. And now we're seeing the reports that it looks like an ACL tear. And if that's the case, he's out for the year. And what does that do to the Premier League? It opens it wide open. The Premier League now is wide open. This is Arsenal's chance. And this is why I came on the show yesterday and said they blew it. They missed a huge opportunity on Sunday to come away from that matchup in Manchester with 3 points. giving up that late equalizer to John Stones. But it doesn't just open the door. It doesn't just open the door for Arsenal. It opens the door for teams like Liverpool. First year with Arne Slot. I like what I've seen from Liverpool. They've been, in my mind, probably the most impressive team so far. They have a ton of options up front. Their midfield has gotten so much better in just 2 years. Their defense, we already know, just lock them in. Whether you want to put Kanate back there, or a couple other guys, Kwanzaa, but 3/4 of that back line is going to be Robertson at left back, Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back, and one of the greatest center backs we've seen in Premier League history, Virgil van Dijk. And oh yeah, you still have the best goalie in the world in Allison. So watch out for Liverpool. Tottenham is another team to keep an eye on with Ange Postecoglou as the coach, and James Madison and Kulishevsky going with Son and Brennan Johnson. They've added some nice pieces. Dominic Solanke as well. And don't forget about Aston Villa. Unai Emery has done a great job of accumulating talent. John Duran comes out, and whenever you put him on the pitch, he seems to score big goals. There's something brewing there with Aston Villa. Champions League football this year. You have one of the best goalies in the world in Emiliano Martinez. It's wide open. I'm hoping these guys figure out a way to do something. It's not in the cards for them this year. Um, but there is a lot of teams that are looking at this injury. They feel bad for Man City, but they also realize that there is a huge opportunity in front of them. Who is going to step up and grab that brass ring? I don't know, but I cannot wait to watch. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. Just about 20 minutes tonight. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. You guys are the best. We appreciate you people in Manchester. Not so happy with the Glazers. So, things like that are certainly never going to change. Follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Um, share it all. Share it all. Like and subscribe. More stuff coming tomorrow night. Again, no Jay and Zach tomorrow because we got a day game for the Rays. But I'll still be around and probably going to do another Recher. I don't do it on Tuesdays, so we'll see what happens. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. I'm going to cut up some videos, put them on my social media. I appreciate you all. I love you all. We'll see you next time right here on Recher Reacts.